Alrighty guys, a very warm welcome to another video. Today we're talking about supplements for fat loss, and this is episode 2 of the Ironman Shred series. So the main gist of this one will be what supplements can ultimately assist you with fat loss. Nothing is going to, and this is an important note, nothing is going to directly cause you to lose fat without you implementing the correct diet strategies, without you watching what you eat, training well, eating well, sleeping well. And this is important to say because supplements should only ever be used when you've done everything else right in terms of the lifestyle factors and reached a plateau. So what are those lifestyle factors? Optimizing sleep, reducing stress, maxing out your nutrition in terms of eating a healthy diet, eating enough, not eating too much, etc. Getting the right balance there, training well, and doing all the right things that ultimately will enable you to lose fat naturally and be as healthy as possible as you naturally, can be. Supplements in and of themselves aren't going to shred fat off your body without doing anything. If they were, they would be banned. What they can do, however, is support fat loss, provided you have all the correct mechanisms in place or the correct pillars in place in terms of those lifestyle factors and training, diet, nutrition, etc. Supplements can therefore, assist the fat loss. So we're going to get into it now. The best bang for your buck supplements in regards for, optimizing fat loss, by far, L-carnitine, L-tartrate. Now, this is a precursor of the amino acid lysine. It's produced naturally in the body, in the liver, the kidneys, the brain. It's ultimately important for, brain health, cardiovascular function, muscle function, and recovery, and, other processes in the body, of course. But ultimately, L-carnitine, L-tartrate supplementation can assist in fat mobilization and energy production, and therefore it is one of the key supplements that is used for fat loss in the performance or sports performance industry. There is one caveat to oral L-carnitine L-tartrate supplementation, which is that it can increase a compound called TMAO. There's a longer name, that's the shorthand version, which is implicated or has been thought to be implicated in cardiovascular disease. However, the evidence really doesn't suggest that L-carnitine L-tartrate supplementation orally or via oral administration necessarily increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. If anything, it can improve cardiovascular functioning. However, if you are super concerned with that, or the TMAO factor, which I don't think is the biggest issue. However, if you are concerned with it, you can offset this with garlic supplementation, just taking that at the same time, and it can really offset that TMAO production that oral L-carnitine L-tartrate can cause, I guess. You can also bypass this by doing subcutaneous injections of L-carnitine L-tartrate, but that's kind of expensive. It's not really worth it in terms of value for money. You can just take a larger dose orally, anywhere in the realm of 1.5 grams to 3 grams, up to 6 grams at a maximum daily. This is going to be, individually determined what you can tolerate. The real issue will just be gastrointestinal distress if you take too much. But certainly from a fat mobilization perspective, L-carnitine L-tartrate is a key supplement there. The next thing is creatine, and creatine has a reputation for actually putting weight on people. Now, so it's kind of a backwards way to look at it in terms of why would you supplement creatine for fat loss? However, think about it like this. The reason why you may get 1 or 2 kilos of extra weight gain initially from creatine supplementation is actually from the increase in intramuscular water or fluid storage. So ultimately, it's not fat gain. It's just water retention in the muscles themselves, not outside of the muscles. So it's actually going to enhance the look. And creatine can have the effect of reducing cortisol, increasing muscle protein synthesis, improving recovery, and ultimately increasing energy as well. And through those mechanisms, or as a byproduct of those mechanisms or benefits, can aid in improving your overall body composition and helping you to retain muscle whilst losing fat at the same time. So L-carnitine, L-tartrate, and creatine, quite cheap, best bang for your buck supplements in regards to improving body composition and aiding fat loss. The next things we're going to look at are mainly if you're deficient. So vitamins and minerals, vitamin B12, important for the metabolism of fat as well, and increasing the utilization of fat for energy production. If you're deficient in vitamin B12, then supplementing with that, will otherwise help you with fat loss. If you're not deficient, it's not going to do a whole lot. Next one is vitamin C. This is kind of like, how would vitamin C help? Very indirectly, vitamin C can have an effect of suppressing cortisol or limiting cortisol during stressful situations. So if you're training a lot, vitamin C can help offset some of the cortisol increase, and long-term chronically elevated cortisol will certainly add fat to your frame and, catabolize muscle. So therefore, it can be, I guess, like a protective mechanism against chronically elevated cortisol, and just one thing that can aid in that mitigation of cortisol, which will otherwise increase fat storage. The next one's vitamin D. So vitamin D deficiency has been seen to or associated with an increase in weight. Whether it's a direct correlation, like whether vitamin D actually aids in fat loss or not, it's kind of, it's not 100% proven. However, there is that correlation between vitamin D levels and body fat percentages. So therefore, optimizing your vitamin D is, I guess, a safeguard for avoiding vitamin D deficiency, which has a host of performance or detrimental performance effects. And there may be some, fat oxidization benefits that you get. We know as well, vitamin D supports the production of healthy testosterone levels, which are known to be lipolytic, or testosterone is known to be a lipolytic hormone in some capacity, so it will aid in reducing fat stores to some extent. So therefore, make sure your vitamin D is optimized. Always do this or get a blood test before you go and supplement vitamin D, because you do not want to be overdosing, as it's a fat-soluble vitamin, and the body can't just, like it can with B12 and vitamin C, which are water-soluble, it can't just, kind of, for lack of a better term, piss out what you don't need. It will accumulate if you've had too much. It's uncommon, but get a blood test before you start supplementing vitamin D for sure. Zinc and magnesium. Now, obviously, these things aren't going to promote fat loss in and of themselves. However, what they can do is improve sleep quality. So taking zinc and magnesium before bedtime can help you get a deeper, more restorative, higher quality sleep. And we know that we've just done episode 1 on sleep and how that can aid in fat loss through its various beneficial effects on the hormone profile. So zinc and magnesium can help support sleep, relaxation, reducing cortisol as well, which long-term can, help you to optimize your body composition and aid in fat loss. The next ones are the adaptogenic herbs, or the adaptogens. So ashwagandha, rhodiola, ginseng, maca, cordyceps, lion's mane even, things like this. Ultimately, these help you to adapt to highly stressful situations. And one of the mechanisms by which they do that is reducing cortisol. And you're probably thinking it all comes down to cortisol. Well, I guess, one of the main reasons as to how some of these supplements can help with fat loss long-term is by helping you manage cortisol, which, if chronically elevated, will disrupt the thyroid, disrupt your testosterone production, limit your growth hormone output, and by itself directly aid in fat storage or, the accumulation of fat tissue. So therefore, adaptogenic herbs, if you are training a lot, highly stressed, can help you to mitigate some of that stress, which as a byproduct can help in, maintaining your body composition. It's not necessarily going to directly take fat off your frame. However, it can set the right conditions within the body to enable fat loss, if that makes sense. Again, with these, individual variation as to how you're going to respond. So you try what works for you. Some people will respond really well to some, others will respond really poorly to some. So again, it's going to depend what works best for you there if you go down that route. The next one, L-THEANINE. This is not an adaptogen. Again, this is a amino acid. However, what it is, or what it can do more so, again, is reduce cortisol. People have even put L-THEANINE in their coffee, and it helps to offset some of the cortisol increase and the increase in anxiety and jitters, or adrenaline and sympathetic activity that comes with caffeine. And so combining it with theanine or L-theanine can offset that. So as a byproduct of limiting or offsetting some of that sympathetic activity, or more so cortisol spike, then L-theanine can help in fat loss in the long run. And again, very minimal, but just more so setting the right environmental conditions for healthy fat metabolism. Now we move on, and finally we move on to the real, I guess, what's known as fat loss supplements, the thermogenic supplements or the stimulants. And these can be beneficial for fat loss if that's your goal for a short period of time. However, I'm going to put a big caution on these. Caffeine, yeah, of course, be careful with caffeine. If you consume a lot of coffee, etc., obviously people will adapt to a various dosage. It's not really the main issue. There are issues with green tea extract in terms of, well, there's not real. I mean, all of these depend. Yohimbine, which is the bottom one, what this is a alpha adrenergic receptor agonist. And long story short, what does that do? It stimulates or replicates really the effect of adrenaline in the body. So on its own, it actually is able to, enhance that adrenergic signaling or the adrenal signaling, and therefore it's going to speed up your metabolic rate. Now we know that long-term, this isn't a solution or a healthy solution for fat loss. It's more of a short-term effect if you're looking for, quick fat loss. However, again, I'd highly caution against something like this if your goal is health and long-term fat management, because when you stop it, you're likely going to rebound. And also it can, like anything that increases adrenaline, cause, stress the heart. It can cause anxiety and have all those detrimental effects, which you don't really need to be adding additional stress on all of your training that you're already doing, which is already a stress. So with things like caffeine, green tea extract, yeah, obviously use them if they work for you. I'd caution against going too heavily on them and relying on them as an appetite suppressant purely because artificially or, suppressing your appetite may aid in fat loss. However, ultimately at the end of the day, if you take them out or in the long run, you're adding stress to the system and you're kind of not creating you're not aiding in your hormonal health and setting the conditions for healthy fat loss long term. You're more so looking at a short fix or a quick fix, which you may otherwise rebound from. So I would caution against the stimulants and the thermogenic supplements. They do have a utility in time and place. However, from an Ironman perspective or an endurance athlete perspective, obviously, have your coffee or whatever like you normally do, but to take them purely for fat loss, particularly things like yohimbine, I would caution against. That's not to say you don't make your own decisions. However, that's my opinion on it. So again, with all these supplements, there's obviously more. Like I said at the start, nothing is going to directly strip fat off your frame. If it did, it would be something like clenbuterol, which is a banned WADA supplement or banned supplement under WADA. That will directly aid in fat loss. Yohimbine kind of does a similar thing, but it is a natural supplement. But then again, highly dangerous if you take too much and not a long-term solution. So for this, I would say, again, maximize lifestyle, maximize diet, nutrition, training, stress reduction, etc. Your sleep, of course, as well. And then if you really want to supplement for fat loss, L-carnitine, L-tartrate, and creatine would be my number 1 and number 2. And then just ensuring you're not deficient in any of the vitamins and minerals. And then taking things which, if you are highly stressed, can aid in offsetting some of that cortisol increase, which can therefore support a healthy endocrine system or hormonal system, which as a byproduct of doing so, we have the thyroid, testosterone growth hormone, which we want to be optimized, and we want cortisol to be not too high. We want that to be optimized and, on the, mid-range end. We don't want it to be low either, but you otherwise don't want it to be high. So optimizing the hormonal system by mitigating that or offsetting that increase in cortisol through some of these supplements can help in the long run indirectly to aid in fat loss and improving body composition. So yeah, like I said, there's no magic pills here. However, these are some things you may want to look at if fat loss is an ultimate goal and you've otherwise maxed out those lifestyle interventions. So don't rely on these things as a frontline approach. Use them if you've hit a plateau. Be careful with the thermogenic ones, and like anything, get blood tests, see where you are deficient. But creatine, carnitine, they're two that I don't think you can go too wrong with. Again, the only thing here is make sure you're hydrated, and you may experience some gastrointestinal distress if you take too much of them. So, determine your individual tolerance. So hopefully that was some interesting information, and you'll see a very common or a commonly presenting topic throughout this series, which is cortisol and cortisol reduction. Like I said in the sleep series or the sleep episode, reducing cortisol through optimizing sleep aids in long-term fat loss. Some of these supplements, particularly the adaptogens, definitely offset the increase in cortisol, which can come from stress or can aid in offsetting that, and therefore aid in fat loss. So take care, guys. Post any questions and comments below. Always consult a physician before implementing any supplement or medication, etc. Be careful with this stuff because there are always risks and rewards. And happy training, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Ironman Shred series. Thank you.